Hello, hello, hello. Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for joining us on tonight. Good evening, everyone. As you come in, let us know that you're here. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. Good evening, everybody. Come on in, come on in. Good evening, Mother Gafford. How are you doing today? As you all are coming in and joining us, please like and share this broadcast on tonight. Have a really interesting topic to continue on with what we've been talking about with the reaching your full potential. So you want to like and share this broadcast on tonight. Good, Mother Gafford. I'm glad you're doing well. Glad to hear that on today. So as you're coming in, if you would just like and share this broadcast. That's what I'm getting ready to do too on my gadget. Here, I'm going to go on my phone and like and share the broadcast. Please like and share. We'll get started momentarily. We'll give it just another moment to allow some people to come in on tonight. I hope that everyone's doing well on today. As you're coming in, let me know that you're here with us on tonight. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Thank you for joining. Hey, Facebook user, who is that? I can't see the name. It must be on YouTube. How are you doing today? Good evening, everyone. Good evening. I'm going to give it just another moment to give some people some time to get on tonight. Hey, Minister Kiana, how are you doing today? Let me know that you're here with us on today. For those of you that are joining us, good evening. Thank you all for coming on tonight. Thank you all for joining us for our Glass House Bible study. It's going to be interesting today. So you guys want to like and share this. I'm glad you're doing good, Minister Kiana. That's awesome to hear. Now, I'm here? I see Facebook user, but I'm not sure who the Facebook user is. Um, who is that that's saying I'm here? Good evening, good evening. If you're joining us on YouTube, I'm sorry. Sometimes on YouTube I can't see who it is. But welcome everybody. Thank you all for joining us. So I'm going to do something a little different on tonight when we start off tonight. We'll go ahead and do that now while I'm waiting to get some more people to come on. I know usually we just get on here and we just start talking, but hey, Miss Allen. I want to do something a little different tonight before I get started with the word tonight. So I want to do a little icebreaker. I was talking to somebody the other day and they did the game. Have y'all heard of the game, would you ever? And they give you two options and then you pick which option that you would rather do. And so I want to just do that tonight. I'm just give y'all like, two or three would you rather's that are biblically based. And just to break the ice on tonight and just to see what everyone would say, which helps us also to get to know each other better. Hey, Miss Lisa, thank you for joining us. So my first would you ever is, would you rather have the super strength of Samson or the wisdom of Solomon? So you guys post your comments here, which one you would rather do if you had the choice to have the strength of Samson or would you rather have the wisdom of Solomon? And I'm going to tell you my answer. So you guys let me know what you think. Yes, I agree with you all. I said the same thing. I said the wisdom. I said because wisdom goes further than having strength. Wisdom will take you farther any day. All right, so let's go to our next one is, would you rather be able to feed 5,000 people with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, or heal someone's blindness? Which one would you rather be able to do? That one's kind of tough. Because part of me is like, I'd rather be able to feed all these people that are hungry. But then the other part of me is like, people can eat, but someone's blind, Heal the blindness. I hear all of y'all say heal the blindness. Okay, okay. You all are all on one accord tonight. All right. So let's see. Here's the last one we'll do. Let's see, give me just a moment. All right. Would you have rather seen the Red Sea being parted or Jesus walking on water? Ooh, that's a hard one again. I think Jesus walking on water. What do you guys think? If you could have seen the Red Sea being parted or Jesus walking on water? Yep, I agree. Jesus walking on water for me any day. I'm trying to pull up this broadcast. Minister Kiana said, Bo, I know it's hard. It's hard, girl. I know. All right, you guys. Well, thank you all for participating on tonight. I just wanted to do something a little different on tonight, before we go on to going into the word and proceeding forth. I just think it's just something fun to do. So I'm gonna be talk. So first of all, let me say again for those of you all who just came on, go ahead and like and share this broadcast. Now, what we're gonna talk about on the night, we're still gonna be talking about things that may hinder us from reaching our full potential. So when I bring up what this thing is, you may want to be careful, some of you, what you say. Or be careful because of who may see this, but I do want everybody to participate on tonight, okay? So, what we're going to be talking about tonight that may hinder you from reaching your full potential is personal relationships. So, if you with somebody, whether it's a romantic relationship, a family member, or somebody you may not want to disclose all of the information or share tonight, but I do want you to share and participate on tonight, okay? And I want you all to like and share this broadcast because I feel like, it's something a lot of us don't talk about, right? The issue sometimes we have with our personal relationships, and sometimes we have issues with our personal relationships and we don't think that they hinder us, right? So we're gonna dive into this on tonight. So my first question I have is, what are some common distractions or things that happen in a personal relationship that may affect your ability to focus on particular areas of your life or to be able to move forward in reaching your full potential and everything that God has for you? What are some of those things that can happen in personal relationships that can hinder us? I know I have a few, but I'm gonna let you guys list yours before I go over mine. But if you can think about some things in personal relationships, whether it be a romantic relationship, whether it be with a family member or co-worker, that may cause you to lose your focus or hinder you from moving forward and reaching your full potential. Not being truthful. Absolutely. That's a good one. Anybody else? Yeah, that's a good one, Miss Lisa. A lot of people aren't honest, are they? Trying to please that person. Yes, ma'am. Trying to please the person and And I'm gonna tell you, boy, that's a good one too, Mother Gafford. When you're trying to please other people sometimes and you go outside of your way trying to please other people, that's not always good. Not being focused on God. Yes, Miss Lisa. Yes. They can definitely hinder you from being focused on God. So I'm gonna give y'all some of the ones that that I had. So what about when you're in these personal relationships with people and there's conflict? That's a big one because a lot of times when we have personal relationships, we get distracted by what's going on in that relationship with conflict. It could be an argument, something, some type of emotional baggage. And guess what? When that happens, usually it drains our energy, right? It causes us to not be able to focus on the things that we are supposed to be doing, and it gets us off track a lot of times. Anybody else got any other ones? I got another one. Codependency. Ooh, that's a big one too. And for those of you that don't know what it means to be codependent is where you just you rely on another person so much um, that it almost becomes like an obsession or successive. And so it can also lead to having unhealthy behaviors when in an inability to, I guess, like set boundaries when you're codependent on somebody. And so a lot of times when people become codependent on people, they're so like just wrapped up in that person, kind of like what I think somebody just said when they said that you're trying to please. Mother Gafford said you're trying to please somebody else, and some of that behavior can be caused by a codependent relationship, and that can definitely cause you to get off track from what you need to be doing. Anybody else have any other ones? Okay, I got one more that's on my list, and that's jealousy and insecurity. A lot of times in relationships, people become insecure in themselves and in their relationship, and it just causes them to worry and stress a lot, right? And they're so worried and they're so stressed that they can't focus on anything else, and they're just consumed with that relationship. See, Mother Gafford said, allowing that person to become more important than God. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Okay, you guys. So, again, for those of you that are just joining us, we're continuing on talking about things that hinder us from reaching our full potential. And we're talking about personal relationships. And the first question I ask is, what are some distractions or things that happen in personal relationships that cause us or to not be able to keep focus on what we should be focusing on, or stops us or hinders us from reaching our full potential? So my next question is, okay, now we've identified some of those things, right? So how can we balance our personal relationships with our responsibilities? Like, for example, if you're in school, but you're in a marriage or a relationship, or you have an issue with a coworker, or what can we do? So I'll use one that I think is really good. Is I think we need to be able to communicate better, right? That's mine. That's one of the things I think we can do to better balance our personal relationships. I think a lot of times when we have issues with our personal relationships, it's because we're not effectively communicating with one another. Anybody have any other ones? So while you guys are listening, y'all, I'm going to go over my list too. I also feel like, some other things that we can do is we can be mindful that not everyone thinks like us, right? We need to be mindful and understand that whatever the dynamics of our relationship are, that everyone doesn't feel like we do, and that's okay. Mother Gafford said, set priorities. Yes, ma'am. Set priorities. That's good. Miss Lisa said, self-care in relationships. Yes, ma'am. Self-care in relationships is very important. A lot of times we don't take time to do things for ourselves. We're so focused on that other person that we don't think about ourselves. That was one of mine too. What about Well, I guess Mother Gafford kind of said that one, but I'll elaborate more on the doing the priority. So prioritize. I think one thing that you need to consider is thinking about in that relationship what matters to you most. Boundaries. Oh, absolutely. Setting boundaries is very important. I'm gonna tell y'all something. Transparent moment. So I have an issue with setting boundaries. That's one of my biggest things. Oh my God. I don't know how to set boundaries with people. And so that's really difficult because we have ministry, we have a business as well. And so sometimes I don't know how to set boundaries with people. So that's very big. Good evening, Minister Robin. Thank you for joining us on tonight. That is a big one for me. Good evening, Deacon Brown. Anybody else have any other things that we can do to balance our relationships and responsibilities that we have? All right. So now let's take a look at, okay, so I want to go back to the boundaries. That was on, yes, learn to say no, absolutely. And Minister Kiana said lack of are you saying self-worth, working on healing so that your past doesn't hinder your present and future relationships? Absolutely. That's a good one. Ooh, that's a good one. Because a lot of times we carry all that baggage and things that have happened in our past into our current relationships, whether it's a romantic relationship or work relationship, whatever's happened. A lot of times we do that, and we do it sometimes and we don't even know we're doing it, and it predicates our behaviors in those relationships. So I want to go to, I think it was, who was it? Let me see online. Okay, it was Miss Lisa said boundaries. I want to go back to this one really quickly because boundaries was on my list, Miss Lisa. That was one of mine on my list. And I feel like, boundaries are really important. And like I said, that's one of my own personal struggles. So I kind of evaluated this one more and I thought about it for a little while. And, one of the ways that those of us that do struggle with setting boundaries is we have to learn how to clearly communicate with other people in our lives, right? And when we do communicate what our needs are and what our expectations are, we have to stand firmly on those things. And that's where my issue comes in, because I may communicate it, but then I don't always follow through with it, right? And then we have to learn how to seek a solution that not only helps us, right, but helps that person. So one of the things I had to learn how to do is sometimes, people will call on me and ask me to do things, and it's hard for me to say no to those people, or to be able to set a boundary. Hey, don't call me after this time, or whatever the case may be. But then I have to learn how to find a solution. Okay, well, maybe if I can't, if I can't immediately respond to them, maybe I can just let them know, hey, this is not a good time to call me, but if you leave me a message, I'll get back to you, the next day, unless it's an emergency or something. It's different ways that we can learn how to still be there for that person, but set a boundary. And I think it's just my big heart, right? So it's hard for me to do that. All right. So then this is what I want to talk about too. So another big one that I talked about at the beginning was conflict. And I feel like this hinders a lot of us, right? A lot of us have conflicts with people. Yes, ma'am, respecting one another. And so, and even going with that, a lot of times when we have conflict with people, we don't respect each other, right? We are disrespectful a lot of times to the people that we are in conflict with. We say mean things. We don't always act godly when we're in conflict with people. So I want to talk about that because I can't remember who I was having a conversation with the other day, but we were talking about conflict, in fact, with people. And we were laughing and we were saying how sometimes we just have to pray, like in the midst of things happening, like, Lord, please help me, because I was that person where words would come from my mouth and the words were not always nice words, and they weren't always choice words. And so that was how I usually responded to conflict with people. And so now that, I am saved and things have changed in my life, I now have found myself at times having to pray a lot to overcome those moments where I want to say things. So y'all help me out tonight. So for those that are struggling, that maybe you've overcome this part, or maybe you're going through it and you found something that works for you, how can we deal with conflicts that we face in personal relationships? Let's help each other out. How can we resolve and deal with those conflicts without those conflicts causing us to get distracted? Because a lot of times too, what happens is we will get into an argument with somebody and we'll still be lingering, hours or days have gone by and we're still angry, and so that anger then is consuming us, and it then causes us to be off focus and lose our focus. So how can we resolve that conflict? If we look at Ephesians 4:26-27, it says, be angry and do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger and give no opportunity to the devil. But a lot of times, what happens is we find ourselves in situations where we do let the sun go down and we're angry and we're still carrying that anger with us after we've gotten into a conflict with somebody. So help me out, you guys. Mother Gafford said, respecting one another. How can we resolve that conflict? I'm going to say, when we feel like that we're getting angry, take time and just stop and just think about why you're feeling that way and what happened to just trigger your anger. Because I feel like if you don't identify what caused you to get angry, why it's caused you to get angry, why is it a trigger for you, then it's going to be hard to overcome it. And then every time something like that happens, whatever it is, you're going to continue to get angry. But if you're able to identify that source and identify what about what just happened causing me to get angry, then you can do something to stop it. Minister Robert said, have honest conversations about how you feel about something. Yes. Yes. Be transparent. Talk to people. Let them know how you feel. Let's see. Miss Lisa said, respecting oneself. Yes, ma'am. Mother Gafford said, ask God to bridle your mouth. Yes. Yes. Listen, I told you, Mother Gafford, that's my I find myself having to do that. So yes, ma'am. When you're able to identify that source, and then it helps you. Like with me, I know many of you know, some of you may not know, but I experienced physical and verbal abuse. And so because of that abuse, it was like if somebody elevates their voice or is in close proximity to me and they're to me, what I see is a sign of aggression, which may not even be a sign of aggression to that person, I would perceive it as being threatening, and then I would react to that. So I had to understand that those feelings were rising or happening because of what happened in my past with my abuse. So then I realized, okay, that's an area I need to be healed from, because if I don't heal from that, then this is going to continue to be an issue, and I'm going to be lashing out on people that may not even mean any harm. But just because, to me, it's like if you right here, or if you turning up, as we say, then I'm going to be like, okay, I'm going to match your energy. So we have to be very careful to that, to understand what is the source of how we're feeling. Okay, Ms. Lisa said, if you respect yourself, you won't take yourself through these situations. Yes. So you got to find a place in yourself to where you understand, okay, and love yourself enough to allow yourself to be going through these situations. Minister Kiana said, ask God to give you the words to speak when you're calmed down. Oh, yes. Because it's not always good to speak, is it, when we're angry? Because we know when we're angry, usually nothing good comes out of our mouth. So it's good to just wait to speak at not during that moment, in other words. Another one is be open to compromise, you guys. That's a big thing, because a lot of times the reason we're in conflict is because we can't come to a resolution, right? We have our thoughts, they have their thoughts, and then we got to come to a common ground. So, irregardless of what the disagreement may be, try to understand, or I'm not even gonna say understand. Well, yeah, it is understand, because you try to see it from the other person's perspective, right? And I think that goes back to what I think it was Minister Robin said about being honest. Somebody said being honest earlier, and that, being honest about it, how you're feeling, and then being honest about how they feel, and then being willing to come to an agreement, or and maybe not even agreement, agree to disagree. Sometimes you can agree on a situation, but find a way to work through it. What about you guys if you come to a conflict and you just seek help? Because sometimes we're in conflict with people and we need to seek help. I find a lot of times, even in ministry, I faced it at ministry and at the job, where there are co-workers that can't get along, people in the church that can't get along, and they're in disagreement. And a lot of times what they have to end up doing is coming to consult, pastor or myself, to help them navigate through what's happening in that relationship. And then we find at work, oh Lord, sometimes it's hard for the co-workers at the job to get along too. We all know, I think we've all been there. We've all had a co-worker who has push buttons and we can't get along with. But a lot of times you need to go over that person and find somebody that can help you to find a resolution to the problem when you can't come to an agreement about what to do. So let me ask y'all questions, for those of you who want to share. Like I shared mine, I said abuse was mine that triggered me and hinders me sometimes for being able to have or resolve conflict in a healthy way. So do any of you have anything, or do you know of anything that may be like differences in things that have happened with you, maybe your personality differences or past experiences that hinder people in their personal relationships? Oh, that's a good one, Mother Gafford. Being willing to release people. Yes, ma'am. Anybody have anything? So I want to, while I'm waiting to see if anybody has anything else, I want to go back to something that I think it was Miss Lisa who said this, the self-care. That's good, you guys, because we have to be able to have self-care for ourselves. If we don't, a lot of times we can find ourselves in a place where we're burnt out or we're tired of people, right? Because if we're in a place all the time where we're around people all the time, we can find ourselves to where we just, just honestly, most people just get tired of being around people all the time. We need some alone time, or we need to schedule time to do something for ourselves. Even if you're in a relationship, some of you may be married or in relationships, and it's okay for you to have time for yourself. It's okay to go do something and have some me time. That helps with stress management. That's a big one in stress management. Doing things for yourself. It might be, going to get your nails done, going to a movie, whatever you like to do. Just do some stuff for yourself. That should be a priority. Self-care and emotional care should be a priority. And one of those things that you can do is your spiritual health too. Spending time with God, reading your word, going to church. Those are all things that you can do to take care of yourself. Yes, ma'am. Everybody needs me time. Ooh, Minister Robin, yes, that's definitely one right here. That's definitely one of the things that can put you in a place to where it will hinder you from being able to resolve conflict is shutting down and not speaking up. That's not a good one, because you can't resolve conflict, right? If you shut down and you won't communicate and you won't talk. So I've got one too, that I think a lot of people don't think about, right? Time management. You know, a lot of times we allow personal relationships to hinder us because we don't manage time. And what I mean by that is we have to figure out with that relationship, whether it's a relationship with coworkers, whether it's a personal romantic relationship, whatever the case may be, we have to figure out how to balance, right, those personal relationships and um, whatever we have going on, whether it's family, whether it's work, whether it's school. We got to figure out how to juggle all those things, because sometimes you find yourself in relationships and one person may feel neglected because they feel like you're not spending time with them. But if you learn how to manage, you know, those all those relationships and those things and the time and everything you have going on, then you can still fit everybody. It doesn't mean you may be able to see everybody every day and spend time with them all the time, but you just got to figure out how to balance all of that. Anybody else before I move on? So I want to talk about then, the next thing is, what are some things that we can do or some strategies that we can take to help us to minimize our personal relationships from being a distraction and in stopping us from being able to fulfill our goals and reaching our full potential. What are some things that we can do? Because now we've identified what are some things that cause distractions in personal relationships. We talked about you know, conflict management. We've talked about self-care. We've looked at all those things. So now we've identified those things. So now what do you tell somebody if somebody wants to know what you can do to still maintain those personal relationships, right? And have healthy relationships with people, but then to be able to do that, but at the same time, um be able to reach your goals and reach your full potential. How can you balance that? Like, what can you do? What are some strategies that you would give somebody? I think I talked about one of them earlier for me that's on my list, and that's prioritizing what matters. Which goes back to what I was just saying about, you know, learning how to balance everything. So I would say, you know, the way you would prioritize what that looks like. So let me say this: what that looks like is determine what's most valuable in your life and then prioritize it accordingly. You know, if it's family and you know, spending time with your family is important, schedule a family gatherings, schedule a family outing. If you're in a relationship, schedule a date nights. Oh my God, I remember me and Pastor went through this. We were so like engulfed in business and in the church and everything. And then we realized, wait a minute, we haven't had a date in when in like forever. And so we had to be intentional about setting a day that we go on date night. And you may have to do that. Minister Kiana said, be okay with shifting. In one season, someone may be able to dedicate a lot of time to a relationship, and then in the next, they may need to scale back due to life. Oh my God. Yes, that's absolutely correct. Life happens, right? Things happen. What if everything is perfectly fine right now, and then something, a dynamic changes in your life? You're in a relationship with somebody, and then you decide to go back to school. Now I don't have as much time to spend with you because now I got to commit part of this time to studying. I went through this recently too. I think I was just telling one of my admins the other day. I said, you know, I had everything, you know, I had started doing some training and learning about time management, and I had it all together and I had my schedule and everything worked out. And then we had an employee that, you know, is no longer there, and he was a full-time employee. So then everything shifted because then I had to go back in and work full time. And so it was like, oh my God, now I got to rearrange everything, right? So Now I may not have as much time to spend, with my family as I would like to, because now I have to be out working, and we had to adjust our date day because now date day is taken because now we've got to be at work on that day. So now we have to find another day that we can go on date. So you're absolutely right. Things happen in your life and things change, and then you have to be willing to change, and the dynamics of that relationship will change. And then on the flip side of that, if that's happening to you, you have to be willing to accept that. I'm gonna go back to, I think it was Minister Robin that said, "Learn to say no." So transparent moment, that's another one for me. Learning to say no. I think it used to be like really hard for me to say no. I think Minister Kiana, you got on to me about this too. For those of you that don't know, Minister Kiana is one of my admins, and Minister Kiana just say, "Okay, lady, you can't do everything, and if it doesn't get done, it's gonna be okay." And I had a big problem learning to say no, and I think it's because I felt guilty, right? A lot of times, a lot of times, we don't say no because we feel like if we say no, that we're doing something to hurt that person. But it's important, like Miss Lisa said earlier, it's important because you got to take time for yourself, right? And you need time. You have to be able to say no. If you don't, you're going to stretch yourself thin and you're not going to be a help to nobody. So we got to learn how to say no. We say yes to everything. We're going to be stressed out, and then we're going to probably be mean, have attitude, and not be able to do as much. So, we're talking about being able to reach our full potential. If you take on everything and you don't say no sometimes, then you're not going to be able to reach your goals because you're going to be stretched too thin. You can't be 8 places at one time. And it's okay to say no. Anybody else have anything? I'll give it just a moment to see if anybody else has anything. I have a strategy, but it more so pertains to well, it can pertain to any relationship, but I would say romantic relationship. I'm gonna say minimize um social media time, right? Social media can be a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing. My strategy would be to minimize that when it comes to personal relationships because it can take away from time in your personal relationships. You know, Colossians 3 2 through 10 says, "Set your mind on things above and not on earthly things." And so a lot of times we get caught up with social media and then our focus becomes on worldly things and not of God. I mean, and sometimes we do have motivational things that come up on our social media, but if we're on social media all the time, that's time that can be spent uh, doing things in our personal relationships too. Understanding your needs. Now, Mother Gafford, what do you mean when you say understanding your needs? Do you mean understanding what you need from the other person? Minister Robin said, "Be okay with feeling like you have to explain all the time." Okay, Mother Gafford said, "Realizing you are not the Holy Ghost Junior." Yes, ma'am. Some things you just can't do. That's absolutely right. Oh, that's a big one too. Especially if you are um in ministry, because a lot of times I call it playing God. Um we can't do everything, right? But we feel like, I don't know, like, oh, I have to do this because I'm saved and this is what the Lord has called me to do, but he did not call you to be him. We can't be him. So we do have to learn how to dial back and not try to take on everything. Anybody else? So I know we talked about boundaries earlier, so I'm going to say respect the other person's boundaries. A lot of times we say I have boundaries, I have boundaries. Respect my boundaries. Well, what about the other person's boundaries, right? So if we're going to be in a place to where we can have these healthy relationships, and we're going to be in a place um, where these relationships are not going to be a distraction for us, we also have to not be a distraction to other people. So by doing that, we have to learn how to have boundaries. Be respectful of other people's time. Be respectful of what other people need. Because it's okay with us to call somebody at 6 o'clock in the morning or text somebody at 6 o'clock in the morning may not be okay with that person. Be respectful of them, knowing what their needs are also, because a lot of times because it's something we do, we think it's okay, but we just have to be mindful. I want to go back to something that I was saying earlier when we were talking about some things that are distractions for people, and I was talking about jealousy and insecurity. I want to go back to that because a lot of times when we're especially in romantic relationships, we can be jealous, and it could be jealous of their other personal relationships. I've even seen friendships, just regular friendships. You got a best friend or somebody, and they got a friend. And I've seen people be jealous of that. And so we just have to be aware of how we're feeling, because if you have, I call it the spirit of jealousy. If you're feeling that way, that can really cloud your mind mentally. It takes up a lot of energy because you're worried and you're stressed, and it distracts you. So we got to be able to identify those things, you guys. We got to be able to look at those things in our behavior sometimes, so that we can correct them. All right, you guys. Do we have anything else? All right, so you guys, I hope that this has been helpful on tonight, because like I said, we've been talking about things that stop us from reaching our full potential. I think that personal relationships is a vital part of our life, because we have to interact with people in every aspect of our lives, from the job to our family to to our relationships, every area, ministry, we're interacting with people all times. So I think that it's very important that we be able to identify in what areas that those people are becoming distractions and hindering us from reaching our full potential. So and things that are happening in those relationships, because technically people are always going to be in our lives, and they should never be a hindrance, but it can happen if we're not careful, and if we don't do some of those things that we talked about on today, like taking time for ourselves, getting better communication, um, you know setting boundaries, and compromising, and reflecting on why we're responding or feeling the way that we're feeling, and getting help outside of ourselves. And so I hope that this is help someone on tonight. And I hope even these strategies that we've given to somebody who may find themselves in a position at this very moment to where you feel that you're in an unhealthy situation or a relationship dynamic that's hindering you from doing something that it is you want to do in your life. I hope that some of these things we've given you, like being able to communicate what your needs are, understanding and communicating their needs, time management, taking time out for you, and you know prioritizing things and people in your life, and learning how to say no, and some of the things we went over tonight. I hope it was helpful to you, and I want to thank you all for joining us on tonight, and I look forward to seeing you all this Sunday. You guys, we're celebrating Watchtower's 1 year anniversary. Yay, I'm so excited. And so we'll be celebrating this Sunday. We're going to have a cookout We're going to be meeting at the Browns. Thank you to the Browns for allowing us to come to your home to have our cookout. We're just so excited about this anniversary and what God is doing for our ministry and the great things He's doing. It's just so amazing what God is doing right now. And I'm just so humbled because, sometimes we look at things and we see things as something negative, but I tell you, it's truly been a blessing and an experience. And I'm just so thankful for what God is doing and for where we are right now in our ministry and for where God is taking us. And so I'm just so excited, and I look forward to seeing you all there on Sunday. For those of you that will be able to join us. And then otherwise, I guess we'll see you guys back here on next Wednesday. Now, next Wednesday, you want to be on here. You want to bring pencil and paper or whatever with you, because we're going to talk about the next thing. And I'll just go ahead and give you a heads up what it's going to be. And some of you are going to need this. It's going to be time management. We're going to be talking about time management, you guys. And so for those of you that struggle with time management, and that's something that's hindering you from reaching your potential, please bring your notepads. I'm also going to give you some resources and things that you can use to help you with time management. So please share that broadcast as well, and share that information with somebody so that they will have the tools that are necessary to help them with managing their time. And if there's nothing else, I love you all. And thank you all for joining us. Good night, everybody. Be blessed.